Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, are they having trouble working out prospects? And Shams is just like proposing a LaMelo trade deal despite him actually not being on the market. We try to make sense of that report today. LOH.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. Just a couple days away from the draft, man. It's unreal that we're here right now. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I like going to FanDuel during draft time. NFL draft time, made a little moolah on FanDuel, going to the draft picks, trying to guess those as well. That's right.
Much?
A cool $50, baby. That's what Walker Mayo made on FanDuel. Yeah, that's right. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. You can find him a bunch of different places. I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. You know, I do feel like we were talking about it before the show. I've been battling like just phlegm 2 weeks now. You are starting to get there. I mean, I don't know who's going to host the pod if both of us are just out of commission, but it feels like we're both SGA doing a Good Morning America interview the morning after a championship celebration. You can see it in our eyes. You can see it. We're crawling past the finish line.
No. I am Tyrese Halliburton. If I can walk, I can play. If I can speak at all, I will be on this podcast either celebrating the Charlotte Hornets selection at the number 4 overall pick or excoriating it.
That's a big word. Excoriating the pick. I hope we're not excoriating it, but I don't know if the Hornets are even working these guys out. That's what Rafael Barlow suggests anyways. Let's go to the guy, Locked On NBA Big Board, who writes this, who talked about this on his own podcast here, Doug. Rafael Barlow said, think about the players within that range of 4 to 8, that window. That 1 to 5 range. Cooper, Dillon, VJ, Ace have all not worked out for the Hornets. I have confirmed that Kaman Malawaj has not worked out for the Hornets. I haven't heard anything that Tre has worked out for the Hornets. The only guy in that range within that range that has worked for them is Con Knipple, and they could be smoke screening, but I heard from multiple people that they have not had the easiest time getting people in for a workout. End quote. Something or nothing, Doug, you tell me.
Probably nothing. I mean, historically, the Hornets have had a difficult time getting players to work out for them. Some of that, I think, is because just contextual. Like, look, players want to go within a certain range, and their agents are advising them, hey, look, if you don't want to be viewed as a 4th pick, don't work out for the team that has the 4th pick. Philadelphia has the 3 pick, and they could trade that pick. So if you want to go 3, it doesn't mean that, hey, you have to really impress Philly. You could impress Washington, or you could impress New Orleans, or you could impress Brooklyn. And just with your tape and the whispers that we give to them, we don't have to go work out for those teams either. But you don't go work out for 4 because then you're going to be viewed as a 4 pick. So I think there's some of that. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, like Charlotte has not done a lot of winning. And so if they had done a lot of winning, maybe they would be slightly more attractive to some of these prospects that do want to go to a situation where they feel like they're going to get a lot of playing time and a lot of shots. I mean, that's certainly the Ace Bailey case. We're hearing that his preferred destination is Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn. What do all 3 of those teams have in common? There are going to be a lot of shots available for a young star, and certainly Ace hopes that one of those teams trades up and goes to 3 so that he can be a top 3 pick. But that's the deal. So I wouldn't take a lot from this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that probably right now you see Vegas putting Con Knipple as like top odds for the pick. And I think some of that might have to do with the fact that Con has worked out for the Hornets. So there's where I would be wary about making that association. But they did, look, this particular crew here in the front office of the Charlotte Hornets, they've only had 1 draft, and they did take the guy that worked out for them in Tijan Salon.
Yeah, they did. I mean, a few things. If you're going to bring up the first four names, well, why in the world would Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper work out for Charlotte? There's just no reason.
No,
if you're going to bring up Ace Bailey hasn't worked out for Hornets.
Anyone.
Any team. He hasn't worked out for any team. So, okay, those are easy throw-ins that haven't worked out for Charlotte. Now, the interesting names, if you just want to get rid of those three, the interesting names would be VJ Edgecombe, but he's also angling to be selected at 3 for more money and going to a situation in Philly where he probably would get playing time, even with those guards with Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. It would be understandable as to why VJ might want to go to Philly over Charlotte. So there's the understanding there. Malawach, Con Knipple, Tre Johnson. Okay, those are the interesting names as well. I guess I don't know why those guys haven't worked out. We don't know if Tre has, honestly. That's what Raphael admits to here. He just hasn't heard anything about Tre Johnson. The other thing is, you mentioned Tijon Salon. They do move in silence. Real G's move in silence like lasagna, Lil Wayne once said. And I feel like they were moving like a real G last year. And so with them working out Tijon a couple of times without anybody knowing about it, we had no clue about their interest until 4 p.m. on draft day. Perhaps there have been some secret workouts that nobody knows about with a VJ, with a Tre Johnson, with a Malawach. So that's on the table here. The Hornets, with us having always said that regime is pretty quiet, it feels like they do their best to be quiet this go around, even more so with this new regime, and are quite successful at it at times in trying to be quiet. So I don't really. Okay, if you want to take something away from this and say, oh man, the Hornets have a real issue because these guys would rather play for a different team, okay, that goes back to the lack of success that this franchise has had for sure. But in terms of, is there an issue with taking a guy that does not want to be here, like really doesn't want to be here, and they're digging their heels in? No, I think that would be overshooting this.
No, just go back to the Brandon Scoot thing. Like they got Brandon, I think, back in for multiple workouts. Why? Because everyone knew that the number one pick was going to be Wemby, and then it was a fight to become the second overall selection. When the Hornets are in a position where there's leverage to get these guys in, they do. And when they're not, like they are now, then they don't. Because I think a lot of these guys assume, whether you're VJ, if you haven't worked out for them, or Ace, that look, if Charlotte wants to take me, they're going to take me because they have tape on me. They know I played in college. They can look at the college tape. And honestly, the Hornets don't need to work these guys out in 1 versus 0 situations. That's not even helpful. Now we know for a fact that VJ has come in for an interview. And maybe the same thing's the case for Tre and Con as well. I think that's important. I think it's important. Me personally, I think it's important to get these guys in for interviews and find out what they're all about. But I also think that this organization in particular really values that, trying to figure out if you're going to be the kind of guy that can come into this locker room and contribute for us and really help the culture. Which is why when Gavoni says that Charlotte may take Ace Bailey for a trade later, I'm not counting that out, but I'm saying that would surprise me based on everything how they've operated in the past.
Yeah, so right, the Ace Bailey thing, Jonathan Gavoni put that out. Let me try to read that verbatim just to see, but essentially you're right. Would you take Ace Bailey just to be able to trade him for the asset a little bit later down the road, right? Like, today, that's what Gavoni said. Today we're hearing some rumblings that one of those teams at 4, the Hornets, or 5, the Jazz, just could decide to take Ace Bailey with their pick regardless, potentially for a trade. Maybe one of those teams at 6, 7, or 8 decides to make an aggressive move. That's our guy, Phony Gavoni, at ESPN. I'll tell you this, that's a great way to get in trouble. It's a great way. If you don't really want Ace and then you just decide to take him because that seems reckless. If you know for a fact that one of those teams, Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn, wants him really badly, then okay, but there would have to be some kind of deal agreed upon in place when you select him. Like, we're going to SGA this thing, which hurts. Yes, the trade itself, bad. Using that as an example is you already have the trade agreement in place when you take SGA to then trade to the team behind you in the Clippers who just want to secure their SGA selection, and then you get Miles, and then you get the extra second round pick. I forget exactly what it was, but God, you're just taking Ace and saying, all right guys, who wants him? You know what that reminds me of? In fantasy football drafts, when you're playing in an auction draft and then you decide to just bid $1, you bid $1, you bid $1, and then you raise the price, and then eventually, just because you're trying to raise it for other people, and then eventually the dude you thought really wanted that guy doesn't bid anymore, and now you're stuck spending $55 on a player you didn't want, and it just ruins everything. Don't bid the extra dollar. This isn't a guy who auction draft, man. Let's just roll on. Just take the guy you want. Trade back. Let Brooklyn take Ace if they want him so bad. Like that doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like what Gavoni is saying, as that, I'm sure it's happened, but not like that. I can't give you an example of a team just taking a guy and then starting to like, hey, are you sure you don't want him? Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, first of all, messing around in an auction is how I ended up with a houseboat in a landlocked state. Second of all, it doesn't make much sense to me either. One example I think would be the Sacramento Kings taking Halliburton. I think they took Halliburton when they already had Fox, or they took Fox when they already had Halliburton, and then they were like, we'll figure it out later.
They took Halliburton. They took Halliburton when they already had De'Aaron Fox.
Right, and then they said, we'll figure it out later. But already people are looking at that deal when they moved Halliburton and looking at all the assets they got back for figuring that out, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's always the danger of this thing. Like once you take the player, a lot of them, and not only that, then you sort of put yourself and your coach in a weird position where it's like, we kind of have to play ace and we sort of have to feature ace because we want to trade this guy later on down the line. Now it messes up your whole thing. To me, that would be so antithetical to the whole idea of building Hornets DNA. Hornets DNA is like fooling around with a draft pick that you didn't really want, so you could trade. Like that's like 4D chess. And, I don't think that's a good idea, obviously.
Right. Yeah, just if you want Ace, fine. If you want Ace, fine. And then the trade offer is so good that you have to trade him, fine. But if you're just taking him because you're hoping that Brooklyn, Washington, New Orleans, either one of those teams decides to give you what you had talked about, kind of, but have not agreed on, and then you're hoping that the actual selection will breed some urgency there, no, that's a lot of hope and too rich for my blood.
And look, I understand this is going to sound weird coming from someone that covers the Charlotte Hornets, but I don't think there's any bigger indicator of the lack of awareness and maybe the sort of decision-making of Ace Bailey than the fact that he wants to go to the Washington Wizards, the New Orleans Pelicans, or the Brooklyn Nets. Look, Charlotte's had bad management, but they've had a ton of bad luck as well. Washington, New Orleans, and Brooklyn, they've all either had superstars or really tried to win and failed miserably. The Charlotte Hornets haven't had any of that. They're still kind of a clean slate. And you're saying, no, I'll pass on the Charlotte Hornets or the Philadelphia 76ers that currently have stars on their team. No, I'd prefer to go to Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn, who have never shown any ability to win anything, even when given the opportunity. Come on, get out of here. Get out of here, Ace.
He wants to be the hero. He's gonna get those franchises.
He just wants shots. Let's just be real. He just wants shots. And I don't want to take the guy who just wants shots. I want to take the guy who just wants wins. Thank you very much.
That's a bar. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in just one place, so you stop managing your money and you can start building wealth. They give you all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan for long-term goals. Plus, it allows for easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. This episode is also brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If your first person does not answer that you called, then did you wait for them? Probably not. You moved on, and that's exactly why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone Phone lets you manage business calls and text from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE, openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, let's look at the LaMelo stuff here. We got more LaMelo content this offseason. We got LeVar Ball making videos. We have an update, kind of, not really, a report. Here's Shams Charania on the Pat McAfee show, I believe yesterday, said that he's not heard anything concrete regarding the Hornets' interest in trading LaMelo. However, he stressed that this is the period when he'd expect to start hearing rumors across the league. He wouldn't discount the Hornets potentially listening to a trade offer for LaMelo after back-to-back poor seasons, with Charlotte still in the initial stages of a rebuild. Here's what he said. Listen, if a team calls the Hornets and makes a massive offer, makes a real push for LaMelo Ball, if you're the Hornets, you have to be all ears at that point, at the position they are with their franchise. That's what Charania said on Pat McAfee. I ask you if the Rafael Barlow quote was something or nothing. Can we just agree that this is pretty much nothing here with Shams on Pat McAfee, or do you think it's something?
I know it's nothing. He has to say something. He was asked the question. He is an NBA insider. He must give an insider-like response, and that's what this is. It's heavily coded with I don't know what the hell the Hornets are going to do, and that's how the Hornets operate. I think
that doesn't hit the same.
And also, I look at this and I don't say, oh, the Hornets are definitely not going to make a trade with LaMelo Ball. It's just, if we learned anything from the Mark Williams deal, that sort of came out of nowhere too, because the discussions didn't start on that until very, very late into that whole trade deadline process. And I think if a LaMelo Ball or any kind of deal happens, it's going to be as they're about to make this fourth pick. It's going to be right on the line. They don't sort of like have discussions on, I don't think they have discussions on players that would then leak out, weeks beforehand. I think how they operate is they get things like lined up right at the line and then make deals there. So this doesn't surprise me at all. I don't think they're having a lot of discussions about moving LaMelo Ball. I think if a team suddenly called them with a giant package, as he's alluding to there, they would be irresponsible not to contemplate that deal, considering the injury history.
Yeah, right. He's not wrong, right? Shams isn't saying anything wrong, and it's good context to bring up that there was a question about LaMelo, and so this is fine. It's just when you're an NBA insider of this magnitude, if you're a Woj or if you're a Shams, and you say something like this, then everybody assumes that it's because you've heard things behind the scenes, and like a Bill Simmons says something, a Zach Lowe says something, and they give you this opinion where I'm kind of hearing, this is how I'm feeling. It's coming from somewhere a lot of times, and so you have to take what they say with a lot of significance. Like what they're saying is significant. It's the same thing here with Shams. He's not wrong, but if we just dissect what this really means, what it really means is there has been absolutely nothing to legitimately report on with the LaMelo saga. What that means is there haven't been any calls to that magnitude where there was any traction, right? There's been nothing there. So maybe it happens. The Hornets would have to absolutely listen to any trade offer for LaMelo that involved a smorgasbord of picks, but I don't think they're getting that offer right now. If it happens later, fine, but he's not wrong. It's just that there's nothing new here whatsoever to report. He's answering this question just like you and I would, not like an NBA insider.
And you bet that if there was something to report on the LaMelo situation, if they had discussions with the Clippers or some other team, that you would start to hear that information be alluded to at some point during this process. Shams Charania would love nothing more than to go on the Pat McAfee show with some solid LaMelo Ball intel. He doesn't have it. And he doesn't really even hint to it here. It's coded. Yeah. It's not as bad as some of these like draft experts that sort of they package their information as if it's a rumor, but it's really just them musing in their own mind. That's the stuff that I hate. I don't even think Shams is like too far off base here. And
no, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. We're just like that. That's the thing. It's aggregated. It's on the Pat McAfee show. People are wondering, hey, it's Shams. We need to take this seriously because it's Shams. What does that mean? So this isn't really any, like, we're not going to come up with a fake, funny nickname for Shams. Like, there's nothing here for that.
Not yet.
It's just, not yet, maybe. The FanDuel stuff, which was much more destructive with the FanDuel, Scoot Henderson, maybe the Hornets go get him. That's the stuff we can make fun of him for. This, no, he's not wrong. He's not doing anything wrong. It's just that there's nothing new on the LaMelo front. He's answering this as if he was hosting a Hornets podcast and trying to pontificate about what they might do in that scenario.
Oh, no. The FanDuel stuff was scam Sharania. Most of the time he's Shams Sharania. That was scams. Sharania for sure.
That's Sham Sharangia. What he did was wrong.
I like that one too. But we have heard, I think, solid intel, solid reporting that the Hornets are looking at options to trade back. And that's where, right. I look at VJ Edgecombe. I think if he fell to them, they would feel confident that he could transform the defense. I think they like a lot of things from Con Knippel. As much as I've heard the Hornets wanting to trade back, I'm just not certain they feel highly confident in maybe any of these guys. I think maybe you could throw VJ Edgecombe in there as like a guy that they would just scoop up if he's available. But I don't know that they're operating from a place of high confidence. So we have had some reporting coming out of that camp that I do think is solid. And the fact that we're not hearing that on LaMelo Ball, if you're a fan of LaMelo Ball in Charlotte, should make you feel good. Also, this video of him working on his mid-range game with the Hornets staff. So look, if they are planning on trading LaMelo Ball, if there's some master plan, then this is like the movie Goodfellas, and they're taking, they're taking the guy into the room and treating him all nice before they, do the deed, because they've got Hornets staff members in LA in his own gym saying, hey, let's work on some mid-range moves to increase your offensive versatility, which I love, by the way, because we talked about his struggles at the rim. If they could make him a versatile player and not even address that weakness and just say, all right, we're going to turn that weakness, we're going to forget about that, and let's talk about some ways we can develop even more strengths for you to score, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, just getting to the floater even more so, and hitting the floater at a higher percentage, because it was nice at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, it started to slip a little bit. If you start to get into the free throw line and decide, you know what, instead of taking all that battering and bruising down low, I still want you to get to the foul line. Mid-ranges the mid-ranges might take away from getting to the free throw line. So do you just shoot within the confines of the back and forth game at the free throw line, rather than getting there and then having everybody line up parallel on the paint? That's the question for LaMelo, getting inside the 3-point arc.
Well, and so what we saw in that video, I mean, there were a number of, like, you're driving to the elbow and then making a move, like a little turnaround move, a fake, and then over your other shoulder to get open for a mid-range shot. And it's like, to me, we saw a lot of LaMelo Ball last season getting double-teamed, getting blitzed off the pick and roll, and taken out of his ability to pull up for like reasonable three-point shots.
Yeah.
Like he was having to pull up for some unreasonable three-point shots, and sometimes he hits those. But his efficiency took a little bit of a dip. And so it's like, what if we can develop other parts of your game that don't require you to go all the way to the rim, get bruised and battered, or not pick up a foul, but can make those defenses play you a little bit more honestly. It's what happens with SGA. Like SGA's ability he wants to drive to the elbow. SGA's, like, he's good at getting fouled, but he's not always, he'll talk about this, he's not always looking to drive to the rim. He wants to drive to the elbow because he knows from that spot he can make plays for himself because of his height, but he can also make plays for others from the elbow if the threat of him pulling up from the elbow and knocking a shot is there, because that's going to pull the defense up. Then you've got people cutting baseline, then you got people cutting 45, and he can hit those players on that pass. To me, huge developments, and I'm glad they're focusing on it.
Yeah, we'll see how it all unfolds, but LaMelo working on a whole bunch of stuff with Hornet staff is a great thing to see. And not that we are surprised by it, but it's nice. I like seeing the videos. It allows us something to talk about.
I don't know who leaked that, but more. Less LeVar Ball trying to get them to Clippers land, and more what are they working on in the offseason? That's what we want, people.
For the Hornets, yeah. We want them to do all this awesome stuff with a Hornets jersey on.
It'd be
Coming
nice.
up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Mock drafts everywhere, galore. We have a couple to get to. I actually helped out a little bit. I've been asking Doug for multiple, so I decided to carry my weight around here. I even have one for the
Finally.
people. Yeah, I have a mock draft for the people just like Doug does. Only a couple more days, one more before the first round, and then we'll even give you a sicko, like the ultimate exclamation point sicko mock draft only on the day of the second round. It's hilarious that we have a couple of those to get to. We get to them coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports, they're in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or you're a high-stakes soccer action fan, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Don't get sunburned at the beach. Why would you do that? I've been using FanDuel to track some of my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions, and there are always fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast payout, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. That's all with FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets, $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Finishing thoughts on some of the stuff. I did want to ask you one other question in the first segment. I forgot about it during the break and at the beginning of the second segment, so I didn't ask it, but I just remembered it, and I want to ask you now. Here it is. So with all of the stuff coming out about Charlotte, right? Like, we kind of poo-poo the players not working out with Charlotte. You know, we dismiss the rumors about not wanting to play with LaMelo, like, okay, it's really not a big deal. And this is me. I was, very much against the idea that it was anything a player might not want to play alongside LaMelo Ball for really whatever reason. Whether you didn't like him, you don't know him, so that's weird. Whatever. Positional overlap. This is what every prospect angles for, wanting to go to the right situation. Are there enough things coming out against the Hornets to where there's enough smoke here that you worry a little bit about a potential fire? Or are all of these things just so unfounded and so usual in the way that we talk about draft season 2024, 2023, 2022, that we still feel, even with all these little tiny things coming out about the Hornets, like, it still feels like nothing to me, but the sheer volume of it just makes me come back in, survey the land. Okay, is there something that I'm missing, or do you have that reaction at all with just all these little things coming out against the Hornets seemingly?
No, I think it's a reflection of the many options that they realistically have at the fourth pick. I think, to me, it's a reflection of the Hornets not locking themselves, not being like super, got the blinders on. We know exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to do it regardless of whether you like it or not. I think Jeff Peterson is an explorer. That's how you acquire a lot of assets, is you don't sort of lock yourself into one vision. You're saying, all right, we're in a place as a franchise where we got to be open to a lot of different things. And so, I think that's where Jeff Peterson is. I think that all of this is a reflection of that. Also, yeah, they do keep a lot of stuff close to the vest. They're trying to run a tight operation where they can make decisions without the pressure of things getting leaked all the time. I think that's what... that's what I think is so upsetting about getting involved with the Lakers to try to make that move with Mark Williams, is you wait to the last second, and you don't open yourselves up to them using your deal as leverage for another deal, and then they back out of the deal, and they use you anyway. I think Jeff Peterson, young, doesn't want to get used, doesn't want to be taken advantage of, wants to be taken seriously. And I think the way that they've operated so far, to me, gives off a level of seriousness and keeping options open. I think both of those things are good for the Hornets right now.
Yeah, and all the stuff coming out against the Hornets, even if there's like a few things that might lead you to believe that this is a dysfunctional organization. They've not won a lot. Dysfunction seems strong for what they've endured, at least the last couple of years under Jeff Peterson, under new ownership. And just wanted to survey the land a little more. Let's survey another mock draft, Doug. We got to make it a good one. We don't have many to get to. The day before the first round of the NBA draft, what mock draft do you have for the people?
No Ceilings has updated their mock draft. Now this one is what they would do. So this is not them predicting what the GMs would do based on intel. This is just what they would do. Cooper Flag goes 1, Dylan Harper goes 2, Con Knipple goes 3. No Ceilings. That whole crew, I feel like, very high on Con Knipple's ability to go in, particularly to one of these organizations that already is pre-built to win and help immediately. They love Con Knipple. They've got him going 3 in their what would they do draft. And then that leaves VJ Edgecombe open for the Charlotte Hornets. And I've seen a few drafts lately where the Hornets pass on Edgecombe even if he's available, because I think,
oh wow.
By the way, we talk about Philly maybe trading back, Ace Bailey goes 3, but also I think we have to leave open the possibility of Philadelphia taking Tre Johnson as well and saying, hey, we'd like a shooter. We've got stars that are going to attract attention. We'd like just a shooter that we think could have a little bit more star upside than Con Knipple. Let's take Tre Johnson. I think that's very much a possibility as well. That leaves Edgecombe open and no Ceilings. I think they do the right thing here. They take VJ Edgecombe with the 4th pick as Charlotte Hornets. And they right here, not knowing what the Hornets are trying to do this summer with their roster, but adding an exciting talent like Edgecombe to plug in next to LaMelo and Brandon Miller would be an incredible choice. Adding a supreme athlete who is dynamic on both sides of the ball is smart for most teams, but specifically in this context, Edgecombe makes a ton of sense because he doesn't need the ball in his hands to make an impact on the game. The Hornets instantly become a league pass team to watch, given what they might do in transition. And if Edgecombe can continue to grow as a shooter, there's a ton to like for the future. I have a question for you on the Edgecombe thing, Walker, before you give me your mock draft. Does the fact, he's 6'5", we talked about the height. We haven't talked much about the wingspan, which I believe sits at 6'7.5", not quite at 6'8". That's a little bit of a tiny wingspan for a wing defender archetype and for a 6'5" guy. Are you worried about the wingspan if the Hornets are just projecting him like they hope the shooting comes along, but they really just want him to transform the defense on the wing? Are you worried about the fact that he has a little bit of the T-Rex arm syndrome?
Yeah, I do worry about it a little bit as you make that jump to the NBA. I don't love it. I'd rather it be a 6'9" wingspan. That'd be great. Tre Johnson, by the way, longer wingspan, if I'm not mistaken. Knipple has the T-Rex arms, too. So Tre Johnson, maybe there's something there to like. It's just not the body that VJ has. I'm a little worried about it, but I've been digging into a whole bunch of stuff, Doug, like trying to figure out who the hell I want. And VJ has always had the very slim lead, but then I see some stuff that I worry about, and it's like, all right, do I really want to go in on VJ Edgecombe as just over Tre Johnson, over some of these other guys outright, make the pick? Is it that simple? I was looking at some defensive stats last night, looking more over defensive film with him. And I think today, the day before the draft, I feel as solid about taking VJ over anybody else. Like they're just
put it on the board.
I've always been leaning that way. It's not surprising for anyone to hear. He's always been the leader in the clubhouse, but it's waned, right? It's been a leaky confidence type of pick in VJ. I've called my leaky confidence the Don Cheadle, Basher, and Ocean's 11 pick, where I'm detonating the pinch and also covering myself while doing it and detonating the bomb. A lot of these are my Don Cheadle picks. But I was looking over some defensive stats. Just everything's in the green, Doug. Everything. Like blocks per 40 minutes, steals. He's so good at making plays on the ball. I understand that he's not amazing at point of attack right now. It is not because of the lack of tools and even with the lack of wingspan. I think when, like in pick and roll coverage, he's looking back at the screen to see where it is, and then that's when a ball handler will attack him when he looks back at the right time. That's coachable, man. Like that kind of stuff is simple. He's going to be able to move his feet. He makes plays instinctively on the team defensive side. That guy just wants to freaking win and do whatever you want him to do. Whatever you want him to do. The handle is not so poor that I'm not going to take him. And I was worried about it. I value handle a lot, which was allowing me to tread some Tre Johnson waters ahead of VJ in both of them available scenarios. But I'm just taking VJ Edgecombe because I feel like he can do a whole bunch of stuff, just a bunch of it, and I'm taking him. So not enough for me not to take him, to answer your question.
No, and it doesn't bother me either, and I'll tell you why very quickly because I know you've got a second round mock we got to get to. It doesn't bother me because he has the physicality and the want to become a classic defender with a smaller wingspan that can still disrupt plays. Guess who that is? Alex Caruso. We saw a lot of that in these playoffs and these finals. Guess who also has it? Lou Dort, who I think is like 6'8" for a 6'6" player. And Alex Caruso, I think, is like even shorter. I think he's like 6'6" wingspan for his height. So it doesn't bother me because, yeah, he's not going to maybe able to disrupt passing lanes, but he'll be able to get into bodies and get steals. VJ Edgecombe will be fine. And also, I think shorter wingspans project you to be more consistent shooters. So if you're a little bit worried or want him to become a more consistent shooter, then you want the shorter wingspan guy in that situation. If he has the physicality, if he can put on the weight, I think he can, to become somebody that can body up, he'll do it. What's your second round mock?
My second round mock, it comes in from our guy who hit me up on Twitter, Nick Thomas. He says he listens to the show. So this could be you, folks. If you listen to the show and you have mock draft publications,
get your mock
maybe
out.
We just announce it. Yeah, let's rock out with your mock out, baby. That's what Nick Thomas. I need to stop. It's going to go down a bad lane. Nick Thomas of Draft Stack.
You have a job. You have a real job. Don't do it.
I know. Don't get fired, Walker. Don't get fired. Shout out to Nick, man. Really appreciate the support, listening to the show, all the nice things. And the mock draft, you got the first round picks with the no ceilings mock. Let's go all the way down to the second round. And again, just like no ceilings, this is what Nick would do if he was a GM of each of these teams. And it's interesting. He's got Igor Demon falling all the way to number 33 for the Hornets to take. So he's nuts. The fall guy. That would be kind of wild.
That'd be the really fall guy.
That would be the really fall guy, because Demon, I think, is in like mid first round, like right outside the lottery is where most mocks would have him. But you see these guys fall. Like some of them eventually do. Is he the Cam Whitmore of this year's draft? Even without the injury concerns, maybe he's the next fall guy. So Igor Demon at 33. And then he has Chaz Lanier from Tennessee being taken by the Hornets at number 34. So this is the really good shooter out of the Volunteers program. Older player. He transferred, I believe, from North Florida out of the A-Sun, who I got to see him play live. Chaz just kind of gets to his spots, uses his body, YMCA type of game, but you just can't stop him, and he's going to drill every shot he gets to when he does get to his spots. So Nick Thomas of Draft Stack has the Hornets taking Igor Demon at number 33, the BYU really brilliant passer, but not much of a shooter. And he's got Chaz Lanier going to the Hornets at 34 out of Tennessee. Is producer Katie a fan of Chaz Lanier? Does she want to see him make it to the Hornets at 34, 33?
She would be if she knew who he was at all. She is a Volunteers fan in such that she hopes that they win, but is not really paying attention to the player. She is not that kind of Volunteers fan.
That would be a great segment if we just asked her every year about the 2 or 3 Tennessee prospects and then asked her for a prospect breakdown.
Well, no, this is so while we're watching the Hornets, I'll just kind of look over at her. I was like, Grant Williams, huh? And she'd be like, yeah, what? He's a former UT player.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's great. Go Grant Williams,
Wasn't Admiral Schofield her guy, though? Am I wrong on that? I thought she might have liked Admiral Schofield. I could just be
I liked Admiral Schofield. Maybe she just she's very sweet and pretends to like the things that I like. That's
gotcha.
That's why we're still that's why she's still producer Katie.
She's a good one. She's a good one. I believe Admiral Schofield, first overall pick by the Hornets in the G League draft like 5 years ago. Shout out to Admiral Schofield. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson. EveryHornetsBoxScore.com. Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. They got a bunch to talk about today, folks. You go check out Locked On NBA. Make it your second.
Drew Holiday trade, by the way. Drew Holiday dream is dead for the Charlotte Hornets. By the way, I'll just say this real quick. I know we're way over time. I'll probably cut this for the shorter version that we have to put on the TV screen. But if you're the Charlotte Hornets, don't do what this is exactly what I was trying to warn about in the last episode. Don't do what Portland just did, which is give up a great asset in Simons that probably could have gotten you more just to bring on a 37-year-old that's way out of your timeline, way out of your depth. You're thinking you're a little farther along than you are. I want them making little moves around the edges to buy into LaMelo and Brandon's greatness, not bringing Drew Holiday. That's nuts. For Anthony Simons, like, that's crazy. Come on.
Yeah, that one is, that's just a good player, right? That's trading a good player for a different type of better player, but good player who's also 37. That one's harder to justify. Like, I don't is that even, how much of a risk is that? More so than it's just not
weird.
Something I'm down for. But
don't be weird, Hornets. Don't be weird.
No, don't be
That's weird. Don't do
weird.
Something weird.
Yeah. Don't do anything weird. Okay, you're right though. Listen to Matt Moore, Hayes, and Doug Branson break down that trade on Locked On NBA. Listen to me on WFNZ today, 12 to 3. Wes is back. Wes and Walker, the full gang, we're back together again, 12 to 3 every weekday on Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. Draft day, first round. What are the Hornets going to do? We'll see. We're here to break it all down tomorrow. Join us.